Or how about an espresso?
Just tea, thank you.
Sounds good to me, Gandalf. Whatever you want. I'm just glad you're here.
Everyone is welcome. You can just watch if you want. You don't have to worship anything you don't want to worship.
Thank you, Mike. But be forewarned.
Sometimes we get really strange characters around here.
Wait, what's that you say? Why can't you come and be a part of the stream?
My wife would disown me.
Oh no, I bet she'll be fine with it. Come on in.
Am I scared for my safety? No.
What are we supposed to do?
Everybody do the secret handshake.
Secret cultist handshake.
Oh, now do wizards who love each other.
This, my friend, is a science.
I still don't have gifts, but it's fine.
It's all on the grind, son. Can't be too fine, can't be too coarse.
Dude, this would be a sick place to bring the band.
Indeed it would be, Dave. It really would. I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Oh, look, here's someone new.
Is this the cultist meetup?
Yes it is.
Come to hang out? Please accept me. I have nothing else.
Okay, we accept you. Everyone's welcome here.
Brought some snacks.
Well, that makes things even better.
You want some coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
You sure? It's cultist coffee.
What makes it cultist coffee?
I'm a cultist and I'm drinking it.
Oh. Then I'll have some.
What exactly is going on here?
I'm seeing more people coming in. Welcome. It's so great to have you. Oh, and look, here comes another stranger.
Can we help you?
Yes, fellow cultists. I could really use some food.
Oh, yeah? Welcome. We have donuts.
Oh, it's me. I'm glad I'm here. I'm sure you have a few questions for me, though.
What's your name? Who do you work for? What god do you worship?
Great questions, Rob.
I'm Steve King, and I worship Nyarlathotep.
No, not really. I'm just Heath, and I won't be worshiping anything this morning. But I will be your host. Welcome to the office. We're going to have a great time. I've got my coffee ready, because now it's time for the morning grind.
If you could become a fish, that would be amazing. Then I could command you with my mental fish powers.
Good morning. I see we've got Stray here and Bubba. Good morning. So good to see you. Welcome. Oh, and BGD. Good morning. Great to have you here. A little bit late today because for some reason I'm having technical problems with my lights. I couldn't get the lights to work. I got some of them to work. So this is where I am right now. And plus, man, it is still cold. I was also up a bit later last night because I had a meeting with the manufacturer of tear tiles. They wanted to chat, so we had a late night video call, and I was looking at the samples of tear tiles. I'm going to post a picture of the tear tiles samples to the Discord server. Let me get the link ready for the Discord server. I'll post a picture of the samples to the Discord server, but then also they are going to be shipping those to me. And so we will take a look at those new sample boxes here on the Morning Grind when they come in, and then we'll approve them for final manufacturing. I got to get final numbers together for that as well. Ravenkeep Discord. If you don't know, Terra Tiles is the terrain system that I developed with my brother for tabletop gaming, hex-based terrain system. So there's videos about it on the channel here. So that's coming along, and that's really good too. So all of that was happening. Hope everybody is doing well. We're getting up to 50 degrees here today, so I'm hoping that I am on the other side of all of the severe cold weather, and that's good because I'm just about out of supplies here. I do have one more Christmas function today. It's gonna be fun. I'm taking all the nieces and nephews rather than Christmas gifts. I'm taking them all laser tagging for a laser tag party. So this afternoon, after here, I've got to drive north again. One more Christmas function, go and play laser tag. I think experience-based Christmases are a good thing. So I have water with me again this morning. We should breathe and sip. Deep inhale, complete exhale of whatever it is you happen to like best to drink in the morning. I've got to get drinking more water. Okay, so what we are doing here today, Tuesdays, we're trying to make the RPG Creation Day. And then World Building Wednesday, I got to get ready for World Building Wednesday tomorrow. But today, we're Tuesdays, we're supposed to be working on creating an RPG. Make sure to stretch beforehand. Sounds silly, but good habit to develop. Stretch before laser tag or just stretch in general? I do need to do more stretching in general. My flexibility is low, but also stretching before laser tag, especially before you're about to play with a bunch of kids, probably a good idea too. So we're going to be talking about, we talked about what I was trying to do with an RPG last time. I believe that was episode number 45. We went through different things that was specifically I'd like to capture in an RPG. But this time I wanted to look a bit more at the dice mechanics. I feel like this is this project has gone on for a long time to even get to this point. But hey, that's how a lot of my projects are, because over I guess it was this summer, I had posted a series of videos about analyzing dice for RPGs. And we started off by looking at the D20 and what I like about it and what I don't like about it and what it's doing, what effect it has on the game. And in summary there, I'm not a big fan of the D20, or at least the D20 as combined with things like the Dungeons and Dragons skills and special abilities and things like that, their modifiers, because it's just way too swingy. And that's basically, we came up with well, it's way too swingy. I wanted a way to know more what the skill level of my character is in any given circumstance. Because right now, okay, you've got a +2 or a +4. I mean, later +5, +6. But even when you're +7, +8, you're still rolling a D20, which is generally, is equally likely to roll a 1 or a 20, and it's giving you that spread across all 20 of these numbers, and then add that in and add those numbers together, and that's supposed to be how well you do on a particular skill check. But because the D20 is so random and has all of these different numbers that it can possibly generate at equal probabilities, you really don't have an idea about how good your character is at anything. Now, there have been attempts to solve that with things like taking 10 or taking 20 even in, what was that, 3rd edition Dungeons and Dragons and 3.5, to try to mitigate the randomness on things that you should be able to just accomplish. And that works in some regards, but I don't think it's not what I was looking for in others, because, well, it's a way to manage that with those kinds of problems that we're having. But initially, and we went over a whole bunch of different dice combinations, because I had thought, previous to doing all of that experimentation, that the solution that I wanted for that problem was to be using a bell curve system. So I played a lot of GURPS. So GURPS uses 3d6 and generates a bell curve from 3 to 18. So you could use 3d6, even something like moving to 2d20. Now, different books we looked at in that video series on Unearthed Arcana had even spoken about what happens if you start using 2d20 instead of, 2d10 instead of d20 for your rolls in Dungeons and Dragons. And how does that change the game? Because that does start to develop more of a bell curve. Some people said, well, technically it's more of a step distribution, or like a pyramidal distribution, than something that's actually a bell curve. And that's true, but maybe true. But what I was getting at is that we've got the peak and high probability numbers around the center, and then you're decreasing the probability of rolling the extremes. And you get that with the 2d20s. You get into maybe a true bell curve kind of shape with the 3d6. So that means that, and I thought that was the solution. I was like, okay, so when I'm doing an RPG, then it's probably going to be rolling 2d10. People like rolling d10s because you can't discount what people like rolling, right? You can't discount what people like rolling. And from the game side of things, some people like rolling different kinds of dice better than other kinds of dice. Like, maybe D4s aren't as popular, or, things like that. But D10s seem to be popular, and so I like them. And so I thought, well, maybe then you just use 2d10, and then you have your modifier. Now, that does mean that you're clustering your rolls around a central value, which means that both heroes and monsters rely less on luck, right? Like if you're just relying on luck to hit somebody with a high AC, for instance, for an attack value, well, you're going to be less likely to be able to rely on luck because maybe you can roll the 20, but it's going to be less likely that you roll the 20 with 2d10, much less likely. So it makes the game less random, right? And so we're talking about now, who does that favor, the PCs or the NPCs? That should favor the PCs, right? Because if you've got a whole bunch of goblins, like the PCs are the ones that are going to have a lot of dice thrown against them. Any one particular goblin or zombie or whatever isn't going to have that many dice thrown against them. The dice that are thrown against them are probably going to kill them, but it's the PCs that are going to have a lot more dice thrown against them. And that means if there's luck involved in hitting your extreme values, that's going to crit you or you're going to do some type of damage because of that, the PCs, that should hurt the PCs because they're going to have a lot more. All these goblins are throwing dice against them, right? So if you've got a very random system, a lot of those goblins are going to rely on just happening to roll high in order to hit the players. And then if you have enough of them and you're throwing those dice, some of them are just going to hit. But if you start to cluster things around the mean value, then those goblins are going to be much less likely to be able to hit the players. And so even though sometimes players are relying on luck to hit monsters as well, that should happen less. Now, Stray, this is something I got to look at. We were talking about that where in Discord, I believe. The new Fallout RPG uses 2d20. Not sure how that works out. I'm going to have to look at that because I wonder if that's similar to the 2d20 system that was like Modius and somebody was talking about. So that's got to be on our short list because I want to look at its momentum system. So that's on our short list to look at soon. I'd be interested to know too. Of course, the Codex Martialis that we looked at the other day, that was using a D20 dice pool and for combat, and it was just that you always take the largest one. So I have no idea how the 2d20 works, but you just always took the largest one. But we found out after all of that analysis that the bell curve system was still not doing what I wanted it to do. That was not working, which surprised me. So I was glad I worked through all of that because otherwise I would have been working on a system that has a bell curve in it, and it's actually not doing what I wanted it to do. So we worked through all of that, and if you go back through those videos, you can see the different tables that we made up and how we analyzed all the different throws of the dice, and yet still we were not getting what we wanted. And when I was doing that analysis, basically what I was trying to come up with was how often does the player's skill matter, or the character's skill matter in the success or failure of a task versus how much does the random factor matter in the chance of success. And I wanted to bias what I was doing toward the skill mattering more, more frequently than Dungeons and Dragons, but pushing this, I pushed it a lot further in this new way of thinking than I had back then, but that I wanted to be able to push the success into the realm of the player's skill, the character skill, because that's something that the player has control over when they're designing their character and what they're going to be good at and what they're not. You don't have control over, sort of by definition, the random roll of a die. And so that's what makes the game feel random. If most of the critical rolls that you're trying to make are actually resolved by a random die roll rather than your skill, then the game it becomes much more dicey, right? It's much more dicey, it becomes more random. And I want the players to be in more control than that because they can control what's on their character sheet when they're creating their character. And especially if you spend a lot of time creating a character, if you are in a system where it takes a lot of time to create a character, by the time you spend all the time creating the character, it does really suck to find out that, hey, maybe all of those stats that we calculated and summed up and all of that don't matter nearly as much as you would want them to matter, right? So I was trying to figure out a way to put this more in the hands of the player. So Trey chimes in with 2d20 Morpheus, including Fallout, is a roll under system. Oh, okay, so skill plus attribute. Players gain dice in a pool, momentum dice, to a pool that caps out at 5 dice. Okay, so it's a roll under system. Interesting. Okay, that's on our short list. I want to know more about it. But that's what we found out. So what we found out at the end was that, okay, so actually, and this seems obvious in retrospect because a lot of things do, that it wasn't the bell curve. We needed to just swap because the D20 is randomly generating this large range, 1 to 20. And then your modifiers are generally small, right? Even +5, +6, +7. I mean, that's still a smaller part of a whole D20 chunk. Now, maybe, when you get up in higher level, people will say, well, maybe I can get, +12s, +14s, +15s, but also I kind of like, I've talked on here that I like lower level play. So, I want a system that works for that, even if, later on, maybe you do have modifiers that might come close to matching the roll of the D20, but still, they're probably not going to exceed it. So, so the solution then is to swap that. Instead of having the large range be random and then your skill range be comparatively small, the solution then, it seems, is to have your skill be a large block, right? Your skill is the one that provides that large chunk of whatever it is that's going to get you toward hitting your target number, if we're using target number systems, right, in order to accomplish the task. And then what needs to be small is the random element, the dice roll. That needs to be a small chunk of what is ultimately going to decide that. And then that way, you get much more influence of character skill on here. So let's see, notes here says that we need to expand the range of the known quantity, the skill, right, and reduce the range of the random element, which in RPGs is typically the reverse. Yes. And then I had this note as well. A lot of people, it seems very common in RPGs today to start to talk a lot more about when to actually roll. When should you be rolling dice at all? Because maybe you shouldn't be rolling dice all the time. You should only be rolling dice when it matters. This is a very common thing to be saying in RPGs now. Only roll the dice when it matters most, or when there's some significant risk or chance of failure and things like that. Don't just always roll dice. But I was thinking that, that's great advice and a good way to play. But I was thinking that when attributes and actions are expressed as dice, like by default, people tend to expect to roll the dice. Even if you say later, well, no, in this situation, you don't have to roll. Because the system is set up for when I look at my character sheet, I still don't have any great idea of how good I am at something, if it's +1 or +2. +3, +4, +5. Obviously, I'm supposed to be getting better as I increase in numbers, but how much better is a +2 and a +3? Well, only 5%, right? So that's not very much better. So if you don't roll the dice, you still don't have this great idea about exactly what type of tasks can I accomplish. So when I'm looking at my character sheet and it looks like I'm supposed to roll dice, I feel like I should be rolling. And instead, I thought, well, you should reverse that. So you need to build the character sheet around your static numbers, your known quantity of numbers, so that you can understand exactly whether how good you are at something. Now, this is something that I did like about the Blade Runner RPG we were looking at, because it had a rating for all of the attributes. So it still expressed those as dice. All right, you're still rolling dice in Blade Runner, but it did express your attributes as just A through F, right? So A was like, human maximum or something like that, and C was average and B was good. So if you're just looking at these kinds of things, you go, oh, so this one I'm like at the max of human capability. This one I'm above average in human capability. These are average. This one I'm deficient in. So at least that gave you some immediate feedback as to how good you should be expected to be at certain tasks. Trey says, I cannot remember the system at the moment, but one of my dice pool systems looked at skills gave free successes. So you only needed to roll if you needed more successes to succeed. That would be a good way to do it too. That would be a good way to do it. Some gamer says, holy crap, those rabbit figures. Yes, those we are creating here. Those are prototypes of, I'll show them to you since you brought them up. I've got, well, here's, I don't know if I've showed this one off yet, This is one of the action figures. This guy's got his helmet on and he's fully armored. So this is a prototype of Rabbit Knight action figures that we are working on here, and I've been showing off on the channel because I'm developing. What's one of the fantasy worlds I'm developing? So I've got prototypes of both action figures and plush toys for the Tales of Rabbivania action figure line. Thank you, thank you. Yeah, we're. I got manufacturers' prototypes in. Where is this guy doesn't have his arms on. I got to fix some action figures because I've got to get some new photographs for the manufacturer from the top and from the bottom so they can have the color schemes. So I got to work on like fixing him up and putting his arms back on because these are just my homemade prototypes. I am not familiar with Overgrowth. Is that an RPG we need to check out? I've got a number of different animal related RPGs we've got to check out. So I'll put Overgrowth. Or is that a video game? Look at Overgrowth. We'll check that out. Welcome. Okay, so basically that is what I was thinking about when I was trying to develop this. And so this is actually where the term edge system comes in. The edge system. Let's see. BGD says, certainly reduces drama in RPGs. Skills must exist in balance with random elements and mechanics that capture heroic inspiration to maximize the game feel. Your point of knowing when to roll is key. I agree. So we can't be completely without a random element. Well, see, I don't know. Some people have said that. This idea of drama, like where do you get the drama in the RPGs? So if you are, and also I can argue the other way as well, but some people say, well, you get drama in RPGs from the dice. That are you going to be able to succeed, or are you going to be able to, or are you going to fail? And that's a lot of drama and tension at the table. And that certainly can be the case. It can be the case. Now, I would say that shouldn't be the primary source of drama at the table. The story, the choices that the characters are going to make, there are other sources of drama than just the dice. The story, and like I said, I really think the choices that the characters are going to make. Are they going to do X or are they going to do Y? Because and some of my most favorite games that I played, they seem to revolve around major choices that had to be made. Like that would be emotional for the characters and things like that. So dice can be a source of drama for the game, but they shouldn't be the source of drama for the game, the only source of drama. So but also I would say when you're rolling the D20 and you've got this big random element and you've got the much smaller known quantity, well, it may be dramatic to figure out whether or not, am I going to succeed or am I going to fail on this task? But if this is like an average task or something like that, is it dramatic to fail on it? Is it dramatic to really have no clear understanding of whether or not I'm actually going to be able to succeed at this average task or not? There's an annoyance factor too, because I always feel like that, especially if you tend to roll badly or you feel like you roll badly, then you're like, okay, I should be able to do these things. And I'm a 5th level wizard, whatever. I should be able to do this. Roll 2, 3, 1. Is that a source of drama or is that just a source of frustration? It might just be a source of frustration. So, right, when to roll is the key, because there are certain times when we want to be able to bring in this drama that surrounds the dice. At certain times, we want to know the character may or may not be able to accomplish this task. We've got tasks that we know the character can accomplish, and we've got tasks we know the character can't accomplish. But there's going to be this zone where it is up in the air, right? And so that's where we really care about this and want to bring out the dice. In the spirit of the game Heath has mentioned before, I want skills to affect success more than luck. Right, exactly. BGD says, looking at the alternate edge case, if all players are 100% successful, the game becomes a question of right choice. It turns RPGs into a chess game where at a certain point in the end game, probably coming up with another one. But yeah, you could you could do exactly what BGD is saying here. Well, okay. Yeah, the characters are always successful. Okay, it becomes a game of chess. But also you could look at it. I was looking at dice-free games, because sometimes dice-free games just means there is a different source of randomness, like cards. The cards are a source of randomness. Other times, there may not be a source of randomness. And so that still may be about right choices, and as in putting together all of the factors that are going to get you to a certain target number or something like that. But BGD is saying it turns RPGs into a chess game, where at a certain point, the end game, a checkmate in favor of the players or against them becomes certain. That sounds less fun than snatching victory from the draws of defeat. Yes, I agree. So there are dice-free games, and games without random elements, and I do want to look at those. I think the dice are still an important element for certain types of actions. And those actions, you use this word up here again here. Let's look at the edge case, because that's why I decided to call this the edge system, because I was like, when am I most interested or when should the players actually roll? When should the players have something that is that's worth rolling for? And it should be when the characters are operating at the edge of their capabilities. Hey, I always forget to say this, and just because I don't know it, but hey, if you're here, please do hit the like button. Or if you're new here, please do subscribe. But if you hit the like button, maybe other people will see these streams and we'll be able to grow. So do hit the like button. But so we want to know, we want to roll, and we want there to be uncertainty, and we want that drama surrounding the uncertainty when we have oh yeah, and the Discord. I did throw out the Discord link. Oh, well, yes, I was. Yes, thank you. I was. Yeah, I'm not that big on Twitch yet. I was thinking about YouTube. My YouTube is the primary thing I think about. But yes, we are streaming out to Twitch as well. So yes, if you're on Twitch, please do follow. On YouTube, please hit the subscribe and the like. Thank you very much. Glad to have you. Let me throw out the Discord link to you. If you'd like to be part of the Discord server. Trying to develop a good Discord community there as well. Here is the Ravenkeep Discord. Okay. So I wanted to know. So that was the genesis of this idea. I want to only be rolling when wait. So Trey was saying something. Trey was saying, in my experience, players remember the rolls that saved their bacon more than the rules that made it happen. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Yeah. I remember, and of course everybody's excited when that happens. And of course the flip side of that is everybody's depressed when all of a sudden you got to make a critical roll and you don't, especially if you're operating in a highly random environment. But people may remember these critical rolls. Oh yeah, remember when we hit that roll. But on the other hand, I also remember circumstances, environments, and things like that from RPGs as well. The fight took place in this particular cool location. Remember when we were fighting this? Remember when we were trying to do this and it mattered? Not all the fights that don't really matter. So, all right, let me bring up any dice. Okay. So, I guess I was saying we should only we should only be rolling when the characters are operating at what I was calling the edge of their capability. Maybe they can be successful, maybe they can't. I can bring up any dice here in just a moment. We've got this narrow band from certain success and then certain failure. And then we've got this band where success is possible, is possible, right? And so you're going to have to roll for it. Now, I think that it's the game master's job to make sure that for the most part of the game, you're operating within that band. The characters are operating within that band. They should be able to encounter situations where they're automatically successful, because that's allowing them to show off their skills. Oh yeah, I'm really good at that. I can do this, whatever that is. And the other character is really good at something else and can be automatically successful at that. Then there are other situations where you go, oh, we're not high enough level, or we're not skilled enough, or we're not whatever in order to accomplish those obstacles over there. But we've got this zone here where it could go either way. So I think the bulk of the adventure should be designed so the players at the table will most of the time be operating at the edge of their capabilities. because that's what the adventure should do. You should be going on, sometimes you should be in areas where, like I said, it's really easy for you because that allows you to show off. But then the bulk of the time, when does it matter? What are going to be the most exciting times? It's going to be when you are conducting an adventure or exploring something or whatever that is at the edge of your capabilities. So that's why I was focusing on the edge system. So with the idea that we should have a large block of stats, or a large block of our stats should be known, and then we're going to have a much smaller kind of random element to this. Let's see, should I bring up... my idea was that, our skills basically should be rated at like 10, 12, 13, 15, 8, some range like that, because that is a big chunk of our range. Still thinking about generally like Dungeons and Dragons style target numbers, right? But then we need a much smaller range. And I was trying to think, now, how could that range be distributed? So I was thinking about like a graph where we've got a large bar right here that represents our skill. And then at the end, we've got to have a much smaller element that represents our random element. And even originally, I was still trying to think about that in terms of a bell curve, that maybe there needs to be a small kind of bell curve generation at the end of that long bar on the graph that makes up our skill. Like, one way to possibly do it was say that your skill sits at the middle of a bell curve. So sometimes you may be able to roll a little bit higher. On the other hand, you may roll a little bit lower. That's one way that you could possibly do it. Or because it doesn't make sense to put a bell curve at the end, to add a bell curve onto your skill, because then, if your skill is 21 or 20, let's just say 20. If your skill is 20 and then you've got this bell curve modifier, you don't want it to be unlikely to be 21, right? Because that would be the extreme low end of the bell curve that you're rolling. If the bell curve is going to be 1 to 5, let's say, then 1 and 5, so 21 and 25 would be unlikely. 25 being unlikely, that's okay, because that's, a small number, at the edge of that skill. But 21 shouldn't be strange, right? Because 21 is pretty close to 20. You should be getting 21s. If you're going to have to roll, you should be getting 21s quite a bit. If you add a bell curve onto that, then like 22 and 23 become most common. And it's unlikely for you to get down to 21 or also to 25. You see what I'm saying here? And so this has caused me to basically eliminate most of the bell curve distribution from what I was doing. Good morning, Ryan. Good morning. Good to see you. So I was trying to figure out if there were any, like, what kind of dice combinations give us something that do what I'm trying to do, and not this right here. But I do have, let's see, where are my dice scripts? And just by chance, like that gives us the kind of distribution that I want to have. And by chance, I did happen to find it pretty easily. And I haven't seen somebody use this yet. See, 2d10. I think this is the first one that I looked at. Oh, lowest one of 2d 1 to 10. No, 1 to 10. So let's say you're rolling 2 10-sided dice. There we go. Can you see? Yeah, okay, you can see that right here. By chance, I happen to have come across this. And I was still thinking in terms of D10 dice at the time. And so I was like, all right, well, now I'm trying to come up with a system where I've got, let's say you give the character a skill of 10. So the character has got a skill of 10. And then in this case, we're going to be rolling 2 10-sided dice. Or in this case, if we've got a skill of 10, I want to be able to generate a number that could potentially allow the player to have a 20. The player could be able to roll a 20, but that's very unlikely. But what is much more likely is they'll roll an 11, right? If they're going to have to roll, their skill's 10. If they're going to have to roll, it should be likely they're going to roll an 11. They're just getting above their standard skill. It should be much less likely that they roll a 20. So it didn't actually take me long at all to figure that out. And that was taking the lowest die. Now, there is a psychological thing here that you're going to roll 2 dice and you always have to take the lowest die, right? And most people will, instinctively want, hey, let's have a system where you take the highest die or something like that. So in this system, you would have to always take the lowest die. But as soon as you do that, check out this distribution that it generates. This stepped down distribution, 1, 2, 3, those are very high likely numbers, right? So that means that if you're adding it to a scale of 10, for instance, that I'm very likely to roll an 11, a 12, a 13. I've got 10 in the bag. 10 I've got down. So if it's just a TN of 10, I can do it, no problem. But if I'm pushing myself, if I'm kind of operating at the edge of my capabilities, and also this distribution does kind of look like a blade edge that's been ground down on one side. If I'm working on this, then it's likely I'll roll an 11, 12, 13. It's getting increasingly less likely that I'm going to reach up and hit a 20. In fact, it would just be a 1% chance that I'm going to be able to reach up and hit the 20. A 3% chance that I'd hit a 19, 4%, 19 or better, right? So that system, I went, oh, now wait a minute. That might be perfect. And there are other things to change from here. But I was surprised how quickly I stumbled upon that. And I haven't seen somebody use this yet. Now, that doesn't mean they haven't. In fact, Trey probably knows of a system where they've used something like this. But and I think a problem here is that our degree of randomness may still be too large. But that was what got me thinking in this particular direction. BGD says, I think the biggest advantage of uniform distributions like a D20 is its intuitive nature for both the GM and the players in estimating likelihood on the fly, especially with joint probabilities. It could be that, because in many ways like that, especially if you're using like a roll under system, which I see Trey is talking about here, it's allowing you to basically understand the probability of success in all tasks. Now, I was watching something, or was I reading something? Because traditionally I've liked percentile systems, which, like I said, a D20 system, if you're rolling under things, is pretty much a percentile system, but you're just going by chunks of 5 instead of chunks of 1, 5% rather than 1%. I thought that helped players by knowing the probability of things. But I was reading something just recently that said that actually made the players more cautious by knowing the probabilities. So I guess that would take more research. I thought that was a good thing, but it was saying that makes people more cautious. And we've also been discussing on this channel, and I was talking to the Nose Plays about this as well, the idea that in these systems where you've got a 90% chance or something like that to be able to do something, if you fail, that humans actually have a skewed understanding of that hey, I got a 90% chance of doing something, like making this attack roll or something. And then I make the attack roll and I fail. And then what happens if you fail again? Well, that's probability. You're not guaranteed any particular number of hits. You're just saying it's a 90% chance that you can do it. You can definitely miss twice, right? You can definitely miss twice. But that players feel like there's something wrong if they all of a sudden miss twice. And apparently, computer games have figured that out. That if you have a 90% chance of doing something and you do it 90% of the time, people feel like they had less than a 90% chance. Apparently, that's just human psychology, that they think that 90% chance, that's guaranteed. So actually, if your character sheet on some computer game says you've got a 90% chance of doing something, you might actually have like a 96% chance of doing something, right? Because they were trying to balance the probability with the way people feel, right? And so it's possible it's more intuitive. It might not be, though. D8 plus D12, right? That one's the one that produces the low probability on the sides, right? The high and the low or low probability, and then you've got the flat across the middle range, right? That one would work, or something. Well, assuming you want to generate a large number like that could work. But its range is so large compared to what I was trying to do. 2d12, d12 plus d8, and use a roll under system. I'll have to think about that. You're going to use that as a roll under system? I'll have to think about that. But anyway, this is the system. This is the distribution, and I found this really easy way to get to it, right? Using 2 dice that roll under. Now, I still think this is too large a range. Two dice and choosing the lowest value, right? That helps you generate this. It's putting that probability out there. Now, that extends your range a little bit, but with decreasing probability of rolling numbers further and further from your skill. That seems like what I want. That seems like it. Now, there is a problem here that I'm guaranteed, if my skill is 10, I'm guaranteed to have at least an 11. And I was trying to not have that. First of all, I thought that I needed to decrease the range of probabilities. So this is where this came from. So I went, well, now wait a minute. What happens if we've got 2 D5s or 2 dice that are numbered from 0 to 5? Because if my skill is 10 and I have to roll, I feel like the lowest number that I should get should again be 10. Because if it's not 10, then I would have to look at my character sheet and I would have to know, oh, what can I automatically accomplish? Not only if my skill is a 10, I can actually automatically accomplish anything that is 11 or less. Because if I have to roll, I would be getting at least a 1 using 2d10 or 2d5s or 2d6 or something like that. So what if, so I really felt like even if you roll, you should be able to most likely just sit on your standard number, right? So that does require custom dice. I mean, everything's a trade-off. But at the moment I was like, okay, in order to keep it elegant, that when you see a number on your character sheet, you know that's the minimum that you can make, the dice need to be able to roll a 0. So I said, what if we base this around then the idea that your skills might be, 10, 12, 14, 15, that kind of range, and that the random element can only be a maximum of +5. The random element could be 0, but it could be as high as 5. So I'm compressing the range of the randomness. And that's what I'm talking about, like operating at the edge of your capabilities. The edge of your capabilities should be, your skill number you've got in the bag. And then the edge of your capability is 5 more than that. And it's highly unlikely that you're going to be able to reach out there and hit 5 more than that. But when you're operating within that range, that band, which I think most of the adventure should be constructed in, and that band's going to increase, right, as players get more skilled, or as the characters get more skilled, of course. But any adventure should predominantly be sitting with target numbers and things like that in that band between the character's skill and 5 greater than that skill, right? And that's when you'd be rolling for it. So if you have 2 dice, these could be 6-sided dice that are numbered 0 to 5, or if people like rolling D10s, which I kind of do, they could also be D10s that are numbered 0 to 5 as well. Is that going to work? Actually, that's not going to work, is it? Because that's 6 values, so you can't, it would have to be a D12. It would have to be a D12 that was numbered 0 to 5 twice. So it could be a D6 or it could be a D12. Oh, glad I just made that realization. So either way, I don't know which one's better. People might like rolling the D12s better, but it could be D6s. D12s, the 12-sided dice, anyway, it wouldn't be a D12. It would be a 12-sided die. That doesn't have as much, gives much love, people say. So if you do that, though, if you say, hey, I'm generating it, this is easy to do with a computer. It's less easy to figure out when you're trying to figure out what you would actually manufacture or have available for 3D printing or something like that. You've got 2 dice numbered 0 to 5. That's this distribution right here. So 30% of the time that you roll, you would still be sitting at your base skill. And then, so if I've got a base skill of 10, 30% of the time, I would still just have 10 because I'm in adventuring conditions. I'm calling this, you're rolling when you're in adventuring conditions and you're trying to operate at the edge of your capability. In non-adventuring conditions, I think people should just go ahead and have the 5. So you know on your character sheet, my base competence is 5, is 10, whatever it is sitting there on that sheet. Take 10, for example. That's my base competence. In non-adventuring conditions, when I have all the time in the world, then my maximum competency is 5 more than my base. So if it's not during an adventure, if I'm trying to forge a sword in between adventure during the downtime, if I'm trying to do something where time is not an issue, where I can try again, whatever, then I should be able to just automatically take a 10. Automatically take a 5. Take a 5. So your skill, your maximum skill will be 5 more than your base skill. In adventuring conditions, when you are operating in situations where this particular attempt matters, you can't just retry and retry and retry. There's a cost of failure. You're operating at the edge of your capabilities. You can't automatically take the 5. You have to roll for it. And that will generate a number anywhere from 0 to 5, and that is your bonus. BGD says, LOL, I understand how the value of knowledge of likelihood could be a point of contention, since I tend to be a more cautious, mission-oriented player. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but since I had just read it, I think it was worth thinking about, because I think, who knows, it might cause me to be more cautious too. I hadn't really thought about it. It's been a long time since I played a percentile system, like Rollmaster as well. All right, I got a 70% chance at this. What's the risk? Maybe not knowing is better. Trey G puts the bell near lower rolls. Yeah. BGD says, I like your D10 roll under scheme, or take the least, or take the lowest scheme added to your base skill level, because although it doesn't have a uniform distribution, it has a uniform slope, so you can develop a feel for what each step means. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. And I think it's intuitive. Talking about what players might find intuitive, I think it's intuitive that if you know your maximum range is, and I've got the +5s up, the 5 dice right now, that if you know that the maximum you can ever do is +5, but that's going to be difficult. You know, you're much more likely to be able to roll for numbers that are much closer to you, 11s, 12s, and 13s. And then that also eliminates the idea that you can roll for something, which some players do like, that is really highly, highly unlikely. And we talked about this when we were discussing how we adjudicate Bilbo and Smog, you know, or trying to fight a dragon at low level. Some systems, well, like Rollmaster with critical hits or something like that. One of my friends likes Rollmaster because it doesn't matter. You can be King Arthur. You can be a high level fighter, King Arthur wielding Excalibur, and you can happen to roll low enough that you accidentally fumble and kill yourself. He likes that. Other players won't. But some things that other players might want is that it doesn't matter. You might be Bilbo, you know, low level, or, you know, level 0, level 1 hobbit, and you might shoot an arrow at Smog, and it might happen to go through his eye and into his brain and kill him. Right? That's a highly unlikely thing, but something like Rollmaster will model, so that, you know, the characters will be, you know, the players will be like, hey, can I just roll? Can I just roll for it? Maybe I can roll high. Those are players who like rolling dice, and they want the thrill of the chance of the dice telling them that they did happen to kill the dragon because of a critical hit on an arrow. But I'm moving away from that. I want the story to drive that. I'm looking for ways the story don't drive that. So no, you can't just roll to automatically kill the dragon just by chance, because the random element is only so much. It's only going to be a +5. And then the game master also designs the adventures around that. So the game would be designed, you know, I don't know if I have levels. I don't think I'll actually have levels, but the game would be designed so that you know exactly what you're talking about here. What players' expected competence are, what can they always take care of and always do, so they get to show off when they're operating in that level. What is beyond them, so they actually need to level up or gain more skills in order to go over there into that dungeon. This dungeon is where it's difficult. And so you have to operate at the edge of your competence. Your adventure versus downtime dichotomy reminds me of intuitive, easy, hard, +3, -3 mechanics used in the ICE RPG. So yeah, I want to go back and take a look at the index card RPG more. But see, it would be the default. The default would be to not roll in most situations, because you just look at your character sheet and go, oh, I've got a base competence of 5. I'm not in adventuring conditions, or a base competence of 10. I'm not in adventuring conditions. So anything that's 15 or lower, I can just do. Trey says, so the game with the largest swing of dice I have ever played is Feng Shui with Feng Shui 2 with the D6 minus D6 exploding. Oh, whoa. Yeah, I can see that. So, that's basically what I'm thinking. Now, I think there are other ways to modify that, because we want some player decisions to be able to impact this here. Now, also, this does mean that absent any external negative impact, right? That player is not going to be able to roll less than their base skill. I thought that was important, because originally I was thinking, well, if you're rolling, and especially if you were using one of those pyramidal shape distributions or the bell curve shape, and you are putting the center of that bell curve right on their base skill level, it could make sense that, well, hey, you're flustered. This is adventuring conditions. You're being attacked. You're being shot at. You're trying to jump over this pit to save your life. It could be the case that when you jump, you actually perform less than your expected base. But I thought that for your expected level, your base level. So that seems possible. And maybe it should be if there are negative circumstances applied to the roll, because we haven't really talked about that. But at least it means that in most circumstances, players know that they're not going to get less than their base skill. So that should also, from the gameplay and the psychology part of it, you've got that 10, for instance, in the bag, barring unusual circumstances. So you're not going to act. So that's what you can do. So it's important to say, all right, I know I can do a 10. I'm going to roll, and oops, I rolled a 7. I actually hurt myself by rolling, and I went down to a 7, because players like it when good things happen because of randomness and luck, but players tend to not like it when they are penalized from randomness and luck. And I think by basically this pyramidal distribution here, this half pyramid here, eliminates all of the negatives, right? So you never have to worry about rolling and hurting yourself with a really bad roll. Now, there are other ways to do, like critical failures and things like that. But as far as just the roll of the dice and what number do I get, you're never going to, oh, man, I rolled a -4, right? But you do get the thrill and the joy for those players who want to be able to roll high. You've got the unlikely 4s and 5s. So when you roll 4 or 5 and you get up there to that level, you still get the thrill of having rolled high. So I think psychologically this also works. Oh, okay. We got the porn bot coming through. Porn bot. Let me get rid of the porn bot. And you know what we do when the porn bot comes through? That's a reminder to sip and breathe. Sip and breathe. BGD says, your proposed system is cool in that it limits the number of dice rolls, but the rolls that are taken are typically dramatic and relatively uncertain, operating within that Goldilocks band you mentioned. Right. Thank you. It's taken me a while to come to this realization, but I think it's a good one. It's an idea I really want to chase down. And the reason I'm doing this RPG stuff first is because I want to create the RPG world books for the Tales of Rabavania and Theophany, the 2 worlds that I'm building. And I'm really chomping at the bit to get started writing some of those. But I realized that what I should probably do first is at least, I've always wanted to make my own RPG anyway. So I should at least spend a little bit of time before I start writing the books, trying to come up with some idea of what the RPG would be like, the mechanics would be like, which I'd like to be able to use for both of those worlds before I start writing the books. Now, it's possible, and I don't know what's going on with the D&D and stuff like that, but, I was thinking I could have this narrative system that's built out. But then, you know what? There could also be like the Dungeons and Dragons statistics for things, and make it a dual use system. So people, people don't have to use this system or this narrative system. A lot of people will just be interested in using the D&D rules. But those I kind of know and we can build around. But I wanted to at least block out the main action mechanic, because we always try to look at that when we're looking at RPGs. We want, how do you play this game? Well, you play it by whatever their main mechanic is, and hopefully it's a unified mechanic. Otherwise, there are a whole bunch of different potential mechanics for different things that you're doing. But I wanted to say, actually, probably what I need to know first is what is going to be the core resolution mechanic for Faded Edge. So this is what I've come up with. Let me go down to BGD, then I'll come back up to you, Trey. Players having an intuitive understanding of what should be an expected auto success because it's completely in their wheelhouse seems like an advantage, though the GM can always have surprises. That's exactly what I'm trying to go for. I want the players to understand when they are competent and can accomplish things and what they can accomplish and their difficulties. And I think we need to have like the target numbers be easy, average, hard. I started writing that someplace else. Very hard, nearly impossible, whatever. And that's the scale that we're using. Everybody knows that. The players, the game masters, they know their skills, and the NPCs have their skills. And then when we're operating in adventuring conditions, we can roll for this additional 5. So Trey says, for some interesting ideas around this, you may want to look at the ubiquity system. Has a choice for players to either roll or take the mean of their skill. Okay, ubiquity system. I don't know that one. I'll make note of that. Up the ubiquity system, which is different than like the taking 10 mechanic or a taking 20 mechanic, because that's taking the average of this large random number generator, and in this you're talking about taking the mean of your skill. This also should give us an idea about how long it should take to be able to roll a 5. Because if we're talking about, because I do want time to be a factor. I think that time is underused in RPGs, and so I want time to be a factor. So if one turn, I don't even know, what it is, but if a turn is 10 seconds, then how many times, if you were rolling in sequence, would you expect to be able to roll on average before you got a 5? Well, so maybe that gives us an idea of being outside of adventuring conditions, being in non-adventuring conditions. There may be other reasons you're still in adventuring conditions, like if you only have one shot at this for some reason other than time, like you've got the one magic item that's going to break if you throw it wrong, or you've only got one shot at something because you're going to use something up. But this also gives us an idea of how long do you need to be outside of adventuring conditions if you're just concerned about time. In addition to the core mechanic you will use, understanding what categories of setting or genre-specific mechanisms you will want to include and develop will really help you as you write your world books. Yes, because I would like to write the rules as system or genre agnostic. So as far as the core resolution mechanics, how you create a character, now not the world-specific character creation, but how you create a character, how you do combat, I want to write that all as genre non-specific. But then in the world books for each of the individual different worlds, that's when you add in genre-specific mechanisms, specifically like magic, because we've talked about how difficult magic is because nobody understands how magic works, because magic can work differently in every fantasy world. So like magic would have to be something that would be genre-specific. Okay, well, I do have the summary sheet of the main core action resolution. This was really good. So we went all this time on just the dice. So next Tuesday, I will go over the stuff that's written about the core action resolution mechanic that uses this. So we'll look at that. I would really like to be able to get on back on the index card schedule and moving big rocks, except for I can't because I got started a bit late today, which means I'm ending a bit late today, and I've got to go get dressed and showered and get dressed because I've got to go take my nephews and nieces to play laser tag for Christmas. So I've got to get dressed and then make the drive and then go have a party with them. So I hope everybody has enjoyed this. Thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate your being here. And if you caught this on the replay, thank you so much for watching the replay. Hope everyone has a wonderful day. Be safe. I'll see you tonight. Might do some video gaming tonight. Be sure to stretch. Yeah, I will. All right, I will. See everybody later at Discord and probably later tonight. Might play a video game. Later.